It's all alive again at the National Stadium. Speeds. Was he held? Yes! Penalty! So often in the past, Wales have suffered because of penalties in vital matches.
Gordon's there. Field, surely a handball. Penalty kick. It's a penalty kick for Scotland.
Paul Bowden to take it. Oh, and he's hit the crossbar.
Sensational from Hal Robson-Kanu. Gareth Bale, NBE.
These home forwards are in fighting trim. John Charles again, passing to Tapscott. He shoots and it's in. Wales have opened the scoring.
Great John free rush! Yes! 1-0!
And Wales have finished with a bit of a swagger.
Chris, welcome. Episode 201. My name's Russell, podcast Pêl-droed, and we've got Gaz and Leon here. How are you, fellas?
Good, thank you, Russ. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Leon?
Yeah, I'm right. Just waking back up. I dozed off, taking my son to sleep. So sorry, with you a bit later than.
No, that's okay. It's okay. If you want to put this on mute and just quickly grab a few more Z's, then you'd be our guest. Been a while since we've done this, albeit I did have a chat with Rob Sawyer for the last episode 200. Rob is very active in the Everton Heritage Society, brilliant Porter-led heritage organisation, and we were just discussing the Brennan Johnson transfer, kind of like from an Everton perspective. And Rob, to be fair, was interested on kind of what Welsh fans think of that. He's married to a Welsh girl, so he's always had an interest in the Wales team. But he was kind of interested in what our views on it were. But should we start with that one? Because there has been a few moves, and that was obviously the biggest, albeit not for a fee. It was a straight swap. You don't see many of those anymore. Not even with a make weight in the deal.
Yeah, just wasn't expecting it. Well, he wasn't at Palace for long, was he? It didn't go
January. So
well for him. Although, I mean, he did play in the Europa, Conference League, which they ended up winning. So that's like a second European trophy in a row for him. And although he didn't play in the final, so not a bad 6 months in that way, I suppose. Even though he didn't score for them, it just didn't seem to work out. And Everton's a bigger club than Palace, and I have no idea how it's going to go for him there. But I mean, still. Big clubs want him there, so he's, obviously there are managers who can see that he's a talent, and let's see how it goes. I have absolutely no idea, but I mean, Everton will be getting to Europe, I would think, and so there's going to be expectation on him. There's listening to Lee Trundle on the Feast of Football podcast, and he's an Everton fan. He was saying, even though Everton haven't won a trophy for over 30 years, that they are a big club and their fans are quite demanding. So let's see how it responds. Could be the best thing for him. Could be another bad move like the last one. But I mean, I was just thinking, like this time last year, after a couple of games with Spurs, he'd scored. I think he scored in the first 2 games last season, and Spurs were doing really well under Thomas Frank, and he was like sort of on top of the world at this time last year, and then it sort of very quickly he lost his place in the Spurs team, and then their results just kind of went off a cliff, and Thomas Frank lost his job. So things can change very quickly in football.
I mean, even going back when things were going reasonably well, he had the season before that where he'd scored quite a few goals for Spurs. I think he was their top scorer, but you never felt in any of his time at Spurs that the fans had really bought into him. I think he's one of those players where what he does well when he's on form is good. He arrives he's quick. He arrives at the back post. He can score those sort of goals. But I think it's hard to see that any club now above a certain level is really going to back him to be, I don't know, a key part of a project. You know, at Everton, I find it a little bit hard to see whether he kind of gets consistently in that team. And I think he's the sort of player, if he doesn't hit the ground running, if he doesn't sort of start well and his confidence goes, it just seems to peter out for him really quickly. I mean, I think maybe Leon's absolutely right. It's really hard to predict what will happen, but the best thing I could offer as a prediction is if things don't happen for him fairly quickly, they might not happen at all. I mean, those, you know, other than those couple of goals Leon mentioned for Spurs start last year, you know, he didn't score beyond that in his 16 games for them. He didn't score at all in 18 games for Palace. And if he isn't scoring goals, he doesn't always offer an awful lot. You know, there's always been question marks around the consistency of his delivery, that he goes missing for games. We see that enough for Wales, and this is really massive from this Everton move, because you could imagine David Moyes getting a tune out of him. But I think if it doesn't happen fairly quickly, then he probably hasn't got... Has he got another Premier League move in him if this one doesn't work out? Maybe to a sort of bottom-end relegation fodder club, and after that he might find himself back in the Championship. So from where we were when he left Forest for Spurs, and the sort of hope we probably had for what he would do and how he might become a real talisman for them and for Wales in particular, there's a lot of questions still to answer, isn't there?
Yeah, and he scored just the one goal for us over the course of that season as well, against North Macedonia. If you remember how he celebrated, because he kind of lashes it into the corner, and he sort of takes a tumble as he takes the shot, and he ends up sort of sat on the ground. He's got his arms on his knees, and he doesn't. It's not a celebration. It's kind of, you got a sense that it personified the frustration he was experiencing at the time after that what seemed to be a promising start, and then it just beginning to fizzle out under Frank. It was very telling that the non-celebration for what was actually a really good goal and a really, really good, you know, performance. What was interesting was, if you mentioned the Feast of Football Lee Trundle episode, Leon, there seemed to be a consensus on the people on that episode that he's under a manager who is an experienced manager, has got the best out of players, has probably got a degree of, you know, time on his side in terms of, you know, the board will give him some time. That was my expectation, just the way that, you know, Moyes has that, you know, sort of history with Everton. But Rob was sort of saying that the way the last season ended, where they basically were pushing for Europe and then, you know, just, you know, could barely win a game. If that kind of carries on into what is now Moyes' last year of his contract, there is maybe a scenario, maybe it's only a small chance, but there's a scenario whereby they do make a change and suddenly Johnson's playing under, I think, what would be his fifth manager and could be, 13, 14, 15 months. And sort of all of that potential kind of churn doesn't really help a player like him. If they were to get rid of Moyes, who ends up coming in? Probably Thomas Frank.
Yeah,
you know?
He is a confidence player, and confidence players need managers who sort of believe in them and sort of improve them. Now, like what you mentioned about the celebration of the Macedonia games, really telling, because you could see it at Spurs, he looks like a player who's really aware of the weight of expectation, and then really aware when things aren't going for him. You know, you can see how he cuts a frustrated figure on the pitch where other players might not, you know, look so affected by things like that. And another manager coming in, I doubt would particularly help him, because if another manager comes in, it's probably a sign things are going badly for Everton. And if things are going badly for your club, is Brennan Johnson the man you put in there and feel like is going to dig you out of a hole? Probably not.
He needs to sign for Harry Redknapp at West Ham circa 1999, doesn't he? Not Harry of recent vintage, but like, you know, proper like late 90s.
Yeah, so
really polishing up some rough diamonds.
Sorted John Hartson out that move, didn't it? Yeah,
it did. Paul Kitson, Di Canio. Yeah. There's a few of them. Yeah. Well, I hope it does work out. But a bit more insight from an Everton perspective as well, which again is not just about the player, but the again you mentioned it, Leon. You know, the expectation among the fans. They are demanding, but Rob was sort of saying they're not a fan base that gets on a player's back quickly. in the same way that some fan bases can. Maybe that might hopefully go for him. I think he got about 6 or 7 minutes off the bench against Palace, ironically, the other day. So Rob wasn't expecting him to start. Just to get a few minutes in his legs is better than nothing, I suppose. And I think and Rob said he nutmegged somebody, which I believe is I believe you have to now say you have to proclaim sort of techers or something. Is that what the kids do?
Megs.
Megs.
They definitely say Megs, don't they? Yeah, my children do that to me when I play football with them. I mean, I suppose that the other sort of maybe bright side of it is maybe it's anecdotal based on that first game of the season, but there's a lot of stuff swirling around Palace about Mateta wanting out.
Yeah,
it might be a good time to be getting out of Crystal Palace. You know, maybe they are perhaps in worse straits than Everton looked to be, and Everton did play well first game of the season, notwithstanding what what some fans might feel about Moyes if the season sort of dipped off at the end of last year. Everton have got a bit of a history of when they go looking for the grass to be greener, it seldom is. I think they'd be probably mad to get rid of Moyes at this stage unless things start really badly, and it doesn't seem like they're a club in crisis the way the season started for them.
Where should we go next? Harry Wilson?
Yeah.
What I like, and I've said this before, what I like about sort of the transfer windows and the sort of summer is when players make their move and they make it quickly, and the clubs get the business done. They go off in the hollybobs. They've got, the move has been arranged, and it's not dragging on to, for example, now, the end of the final week of August. So that was a good one because, it was no surprise he was going to leave Fulham, I don't suppose. Yeah, that feels like it's a step up, a rung or two to Leeds. What do we think of Wilson to Leeds?
Yeah, I think that's a good move. Fulham are one of those teams who are up and down and around mid-table often, so it remains to be seen, whether they or Leeds is sort of stronger this year. But Leeds do seem to be a team consolidating, maybe on the right trajectory in the Premier League. I like the sort of adding to their sort of Welsh contingent there as well. They've had a good start to the season with a away win at Forest. And that stuff you were saying about doing your business early, it does look like they sort of identified him. He's the man they want. Went and got him. They've clearly got a role for him. You'd expect him after being so good last season. Hopefully he's going to really kick on and be a big player for them like he was for Fulham last year. I'm kind of glad maybe that there was talk perhaps of some maybe bigger clubs again looking at him. I think there was a bit of talk of Villa. You even heard a bit of speculation about clubs like Liverpool, and you think, well, either you end up as sort of bit part player, not really featuring, or somewhere like Villa, you've got a few questions around the state they're in at the minute. So yeah, I think it's a good place for him to.
Yeah, I like that move. Sort of adding to the Welsh contingent, even though Darlow has gone to sit on the bench at Man United, but I suppose it's sort of one in, one out. And so amongst his international teammates, I was just writing an article this afternoon actually about him. It might come out in the next few days. If it doesn't come out on Nation Cymru, it might come out on my Substack. But it's just looking at the sheer number of big Welsh players who've played for Leeds over the years, which is quite extraordinary, really. And the current sort of quartet in the first team picture, they're all in their 20s, but all of them have 60 odd caps. Wilson's got 69, James 65, Roden I think's got 62, and Ampadu 63 already, and he's only 25. So they're all big players for Wales. For me, Leeds is a bigger club than Fulham, and again there'll be expectation there, and I feel like they're on a good trajectory. Manager's been in place for a while now, Farke, good manager I think, and like you were saying, he obviously wanted Wilson, and they identified him early and got him in. They seem to have made a couple of other good signings as well. I expect them to do pretty well this season. I think. Just looking at a couple of predictions, I think it was Phil McNulty at the BBC had them as 14th or 15th, and I was like, really? Jonathan Wilson, the great football writer, he predicted 9th, and I think that's probably more like it. I think they probably finish top 10, be pushing for Europe. Yeah, let's see. But that feels like a good move.
Yeah, they finished 14th last year. They seem to go on like good runs and then bad runs and then back on a good run. So yeah, you'd expect an advance on 14th based on the signings, and he's got the number 10 shirt. So, like you said, Gaz, potentially might have been a bit more bit part somewhere else. Here, he's probably going to play more often than he doesn't. Might be the odd sort of rest and rotation, things like that. Maybe just tactical changes, but he'll play most of the time you would expect. So yeah, it does. It's one of those moves that just sort of feels good, feels right.
And it's nice having our Roden, Ampadu and Wilson really represents the spine of our Wales team, doesn't it? And the idea of them playing together each week in a relatively successful Premier League team, I think that can only be good for us.
Yeah, not for sure. The confidence it brings. I suppose the converse is also the case. So if they do end up having a season that goes down the tubes, then but then sometimes getting away for international duty, there's an opportunity to put something behind you. So yeah, hope he gets a few goals early as well, because he can get a sense he scores in clutches as well, both for us and for Wales and for his club. If you can make a few assists as well and just kind of keep just hit the ground running, that's what you kind of want. You want them to find their rhythm early, particularly if they're going to come into a camp for what we've got, and we'll probably come on to it in a bit. It's a difficult Nations League group, so we're going to need the our big players, our main players to perform. So you mentioned Darlow gone to United to presumably warm the bench. I can kind of understand it on one level at his age, but there's no substitute for playing, surely. And he's got most of his career's behind him, so a bit disappointing. But from Wales' point of view, it's another keeper not playing, and that's just rinse and repeat that complaint for the last 5 years,
and the rest.
Yeah, and of course,
exactly.
Ward seems to have recovered from his bad injuries that he had last season, but of course we brought in Patterson from Sunderland, so he's not going to be first choice at Wrexham either. So. Tom King, I think, is at Everton, isn't he? So it's like when you kind of look at the Wales squad on Wikipedia, it says, the first few are like Manchester United, Everton, but you're just like, oh no, wait a minute, they're like third choice goalkeepers at these big clubs. So yeah, I imagine Darlow will keep his place as number one Wales keeper, and a bit of a shame, but there we go. It's rinse and repeat, like you said.
What do you think about Jordan James going to Wolves, albeit on loan?
I think it probably represents the sort of positive trajectory for his career. I guess we keep an eye on those sort of players, don't we? Young players, are they sort of making their way, particularly those ones who were kind of a bit like Ampadu was a few years ago. It's like one loan move after another for a few years, and you kind of want to see, are they getting games? Are they a big player in those teams? Are they moving maybe to teams that are competing at a better level? Being one of the standout players in a relegated Leicester type team, enough so that Wolves coming down from the Premier League and probably looking to go straight back up, want to kind of bring you into the squad, is probably a good sign. The concern, I suppose, with Wolves is the competition for places. They've got some good players in those positions, and you'd hope he's going to play enough, but on the basis of what he did in the Championship last year, you'd imagine he's a player you bring in to play some football. So yeah, it could be good for him, I hope.
The stats, I think, for last season were that he scored 11 goals in 34 league games for a team that got relegated, and 21 years old basically for that entirety of that season, because his birthday's in the summer. He's just turned 22. So he was, Leicester's Player of the Year. And again, he's gone to a club where there'll be expectation, because they'll be thinking that they should bounce back up to the Premier League. And obviously they've got the parachute payments, so that's going to help with the wages and the loan fee that they'll be paying. And big club Wolves, and let's see where he goes. But that feels like a move that could be positive. Perhaps he's not quite ready to go up to the Premier League and be a regular player, but in a year's time, maybe he will be when he's 23. That feels like a sort of maybe a good time in his career to kind of then make that step up to be a Premier League player, whether that's with Wolves or if he impresses, another team comes in for him.
Yeah, from a Wales perspective, it's one where like it's kind of important for us that it does work out. You don't want a player now like him to have wasted seasons, because actually players of that age bracket, we're not flush with A, really good midfield options, B, with a lot of sort of players in their teens and early 20s coming through to the first team, and we need those few, the Lawlers and maybe Kumas's and sort of Jordan James's to kick on. And I don't think we've got enough young talent for the young talent we have got to not be having good seasons and making progress, so that they're equally making that progress in their role for us at international level.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think, well, if he's come to Wolves, glad it's this season, not last season. So, yeah, I mean, he can't be far off. Can't be far off approaching the end of his contract at Rennes. I mean, he's been there
two years. He had a season where he played 20 odd games, and then he was on loan last season, the whole season last year. Yeah, third year.
And then last year, so this is a third year. Oh, he's probably maybe got another year on a contract, perhaps. Yeah, Wolves should do okay. And of course, he's going to be wearing Sudo, both for club and country.
Seamless link.
Is that a segue into the kit? I'll be honest, it's growing on me. It did strike me as like a Tonga rugby shirt at first. And I suppose at the very least, we can't there's not going to be many other countries wearing it. The Wolves kit is not too bad, actually. But the FAW took pelters for it, and the firm did. They could redeem themselves, because presumably they'll need to be an away kit, because we can't be sticking, we wouldn't have a pseudo home kit and a stick with the Adidas away kit, which means we'd have worn that only once, which is criminal, because that is a lovely away kit, the last Adidas one.
The yellowy one, yeah? Is that what you mean?
Well, it was kind of like an off-white, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
With green shorts. Yeah. We wore it in the second... we wore it away to Romania, didn't we, I think? And then we wore the anniversary kit against Ghana. So that's probably only going to be the one, well, for both kits, the only outings for both of them, which seems a bit of a shame. I suppose conceivably we could wear the 150th one again, but I mean, that would be Adidas. No, we probably can't, so both one and done.
We used to go to I'm not convinced by the new kit. When I was in university, we used to go to a big sort of kit printing warehouse down on Sloper Road to get our sort of our team's kit for our sort of Wednesday afternoon football, and it looks like one of those shirts that would be on the rails there that you could take off and say, yeah, here's a template for our badge, put that on there, like, and some brand I'd never heard of, offering to make them at a sort of cheap price. Just looks, I don't know, no, it's not an international football kit.
No, I'm just looking at the Wolves kit now, and my first impression was I like it, but then I'm looking and I'm thinking, what's happened to the Wolves logo? They've got like some sort of god awful, looks like a secondary school logo thing, rather than the black wolf, which is a brilliant logo, so sort of like clear and everything. Why have they changed the club badge? Don't get it. The new one's just like, it does look like a secondary school badge, doesn't it?
I know the answer to this, but I can't remember it because I was listening to a kit podcast. So there is a rationale behind it, and I don't know whether it's because it's basically the city's coat of arms, I think, and so there's a rationale for it being on there this year. I don't know if it's an anniversary type thing or something.
But their kit's got like a sort of, all right, not in the same style as ours, but that's got like a weird carpet pattern style to it as well. Like, is that Sudo's thing, and just kind of
so the like the watermark design on the Wolves kit is that crest,
is it?
Yeah, and so it kind of all kind of comes together.
Okay,
and it's quite simple. It's the same kind of simple neck, simple cuffs.
I prefer the Wolves one to our one. I don't know. Maybe it's just it goes better with the gold rather than the red. But my first when I saw ours, it was just like Nan's curtains, and then there was like it was pub carpet.
Yeah.
Someone said it, and then I was like, I couldn't unsee it as a pub carpet. Then.
And I did see an image where somebody had basically put it. I mean, like absolute quality photo. Do people use Photoshop anymore? I don't know. Maybe it's Canva. Who knows? But I did put it on, and it was absolutely brilliant. It did look like, Barry Weatherspoon's or something like that. It was very good. But so the other thing as well, I think, is on the Wolves kit, and again, this is where you can't really compare like with like. I think their sponsor, they're called Midnight. No idea who they are, and it's big and it's bold and it's very simple, and it just breaks the design up a little bit. Whereas, of course, we don't have a sponsor, and I wouldn't want us to have a sponsor. So there's an awful lot there that you're just looking at. So I have seen it in person, and I do think you sometimes have to reserve judgment. And I also remember, do you remember the kit we had? Oh, when was it? And it had the kind of sort of yellowy orange and green cups. And people were going, oh, I don't like that. It looks like a Spain kit. And then a couple of days later, the colour scheme on the cups, it was the colours from the standard that Owain Glyndŵr would take into battle. And like there were people just doing a complete about turn saying this is the greatest shirt that's ever been made ever. So yeah, the narrative can help with these things, and if we stuff Norway and Portugal, then it becomes a lucky kit maybe, so, or an iconic kit on those grounds. But yeah. And
the Midnight sponsor might look cool, but they are, of course, a betting company.
Oh well, there you go.
Just like every other championship sponsor, and probably some Premier League ones as well. So,
I thought that was banned. I thought it was getting banned.
Squeeze it in before they do. But
okay.
So why are they not called like midnight784.com? But anyway, that's enough gambling promotion and Wolves talk. So yeah, jury not so much out, but has been told to retire and be stand down and have to select the game, maybe, whatever the legal metaphor is. Back to transfers. Swans have had a few in and out. Liam Cullen, we talked about Leicester. Liam Cullen went there. Wes Burns is there. They sold Cameron Congreve. I didn't see a fee, but I think I saw it referred to as 7 figures. He made a decent impression in the summer for us. But we were saying this a moment ago, guys, when when our younger players were beginning to go to the continent, you mentioned Ampadu, for example, whether it's on, Matondo's another one. We're kind of like, oh, good. James Lawrence went there. Oh, good. Good on them. And very rarely do they work out. Let's be honest. So I half expect him to be back within 9 months, having played very little, and be on loan at Wigan or somebody. But
it does. I mean, you can't. I imagine, in most of these cases, we're talking about young men moving to completely different countries and getting a bit of a culture shock, and maybe that's why it doesn't work out. You can't really blame your average 20-year-old for not finding it easy to sort of, make the next step in their career in a completely different country. But I think, we're definitely getting to the point where, it would have, it no longer feels like this exciting sort of continental adventure they're going on that's really going to shape their game in ways the English game wouldn't. It's usually exactly as you say, a failed few months and then back for a loan move. Who knows? It might be different. I mean, he's not gone to play at any great level, I don't think. Sort of mid-table Belgian. I think they're top tier, aren't they? The team he's gone to in Belgium. But I guess players that age, we just want them playing. I don't really mind where it is.
He's gone to Westerlo, I think you pronounce it.
I didn't mind he was going to Waterloo. He's gone to Waterloo, so I was trying to think of ABBA puns all of a sudden, and it's like, no, wait a minute, it's not Waterloo, is it? It's Westerlo. So yeah, I saw Cameron Congreve in the summer because Swansea came over and played against Holstein Kiel in Kufstein. There's a town about, and I was trained right away from. Yeah, and he looked quite lively, and I don't know, just sort of surprised he's been allowed to go. Cullen, I felt like, maybe it's just gone a bit sort of stale for him there, and the fact he's never really won over the fans, and that felt like a good move. But I thought Congreve might, after his good loan spell at Dundee last season, might be ready to make an impression in the Championship under Matos. But no, it's interesting going to Belgium, and I'm sure he'll be back playing in the UK again at some point. Hopefully he'll come back as a better player. A few sort of moves abroad didn't do Ethan Ampadu any harm in the end. He seemed to develop nicely off the back of that, so I hope the same's true for Congreve.
Yeah, he went interrailing, didn't he, Ampadu, to loads of different clubs. Yeah, I can't see any obvious connection. I was just having a look at their manager. was an assistant to Philippe Clement at Rangers. So he's obviously had some experience in the UK, but I don't know, it just seemed a really random one. I mean, that's not a criticism. Is it any more or less random than Matondo to Schalke a few years back, or some of the other ones? But the fact that it's a big, I saw reference to it being like a 7-figure fee. So it's not like picking someone up at the end of a contract or taking them on loan. They seem to have spent a few quid on him.
And he's 22, he's not like, Ampadu we knew was going to be good, and those early loans, he found the one in Germany a bit more difficult, didn't he? But he was still a teenager then, and there was a couple in Italy. Every year I think his loan moves sort of maybe improved, or he improved as a player with those low moves. Sheffield United, he played for a year, didn't he? And a couple of seasons in Italy. But, maybe Congreve doesn't have that sort of time on his side, but if they're paying a fee for him as opposed to a loan move, they obviously see something in him, and we could do with actually. There's that little glut of call-ups from the summer. He's won Kai Andrews, Ollie Bostock, Charlie Crew. Like, they're the little glut of players we need to keep an eye on and hope that at least one or two of them, make a decent amount of progress in their career, because, like I mentioned earlier, we're not flush with the sort of next generation of first-team players.
A couple of these players have been... they were coming through at sort of 19s and 21s. They're in and around, their first teams. They're at good clubs. They're going out on loan. 2-3 years further on, and there's not many of them really banging on the door. No. Isaac Davis would be another one. Kian Ashford. So Ronan Capaccio had a couple of games, but we do need a couple of them to really start breathing down the neck of some of the first choice. But then again, some of the positions of the players that we've just named there, are they really going to be taking the place of Dan James or Brennan Johnson or Nico Williams?
No, but I don't think it's that so much whether they're ready to step in now. I think it's that, if you go back 5 years and think about, right, who were the players back then, under 25 or even maybe 40, just coming out of our World Cup, sort of going into the sort of post-Bale, Ramsey, Joe Allen era or nearly. You probably could reel off Nico Williams, Joe Roden, Ethan Ampadu, Dan James, Brennan Johnson, Harry Wilson was probably still only about 25 back then. Mm-hmm. We had 6 or 7, maybe 8 players in the squad who you think, they're going to be the spine of our team in 5 years' time, and that's how it's proved to be, with varying degrees of success, but mostly they're our key players now. You look for the players under 25 now who you think, right, they're going to be the spine of our team in another 5 years. And it's kind of hard to see who many of them are. You think maybe Lawler, Jordan James, hopefully, maybe Lewis Kumas. Beyond that, I don't think there's any great certainty that any of our young players go on to be really top level for, Championship, Premier League level footballers. And that is a little bit of a worry, because some of those names you mentioned there, players like Capaccio, Ashford, Isaac Davis, watching those players at Cardiff City, they have their good moments for City, but I wouldn't back any of them to go on to be big future Welsh internationals. And I wonder how true that also is of those Charlie Crews, Ollie Bostocks, those sort of players. I mean, they got time on their side, but traditionally we would like to see a few players coming through to make us feel like the cupboard won't be really bare when it comes to picking our international squad in 5 years' time. And I don't know, that is a little bit of a worry.
Lewis Kumas, Kumas came on for Liverpool on the weekend against Newcastle.
That's promising. That's his first appearance in the Premier League. I'm pretty sure he scored on his debut for Liverpool in the Carabao Cup or whatever it was called at the time. But I think since Areola went in, he's played him quite a lot in pre-season. He did pretty well in pre-season, so that's maybe an unexpected one that he's in and around that first team picture there. And it came on, I don't know how he did, but it came on 12 minutes ago yesterday, and they were losing 2-1 at the time and ended up drawing the game. So he looked sharp as well, and in those 2 friendlies. So he had the end of the season, scored his first goal, of course, against Ghana. Talented player. So that's a promising one at the moment. But Gaz is right. It's sort of promise rather than kind of this guy's this guy's definitely got it. When the sort of Ramsey, Bale, Allen generations that came through and they started sort of making a name for themselves as kids, I was sort of convinced they were all going to be sort of, successes as international footballers, and you just sort of don't quite have that same sense of our young players these days. Although I do like the look of Dylan Lawler, but is he injured at the moment? He's not in the picture.
Yeah, he went off, didn't he, in one of our friendlies in June, and it was only supposed to be a minor knee thing, and he still wasn't quite ready for the start of the season. Like news from Cardiff City is that he's not far off being fit again. He does struggle. He does have ups and downs with injuries, but yeah, he is definitely one of the proper talented looking players. I got high hopes for him and for Kumas actually. Kumas is only 20. He's had a good amount of Championship loan football now. It's hard to know this side of transfer deadline day what happens when he's at a really big club like Liverpool. If they bring someone in, because they've been trying to all summer, haven't they? They were looking at one of the players from the French World Cup squad, and I don't think that kind of came off. But you'd feel like if they bring someone in, that's going to reduce his chances. Maybe then can he get back out on loan somewhere? But maybe that's a loan spell lower end of the Premier League this year, or certainly at the higher end of the Championship. So if not, and if he does get to play a bit for Liverpool, even if the bulk of it's things like cup games, then good. We need to pin a lot of hope on him and Laura, I think, because if they don't make it, it really is worrying a little bit further down the line.
It's interesting that he's in terms of having already scored for Liverpool in the League Cup and made a Premier League appearance. He's sort of got further at Liverpool than Harry Wilson ever did, and he's by the time is in his late 20s, he's become a sort of talisman. So I suppose you just never know necessarily how it's going to go. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go on to be a better player than Harry Wilson, but I mean, it's just.
Ben Woodburn played a couple of FA Cup games for Liverpool, didn't he? We don't want to jinx it by assuming too much. I think Kumas is probably, notwithstanding Woodburn's big moments that he had for us that year, I think Kumas has probably shown enough in his club career already to suggest he'll be a level above that. But I don't think we should jump to any conclusions just yet.
Yeah, Salford City's Ben Woodburn, as he's now known.
Is that right?
And Rabbi Matondo, I've just discovered, is at SK Brann in Norway, so his European adventures continue. Managers, Aaron Ramsey at Oxford. I was saying, I think today I noticed that he's absolutely not going to be playing and putting his boots on, because apparently got a bit of an injury crisis already. Yeah, he doesn't get really a chance to kind of say goodbye to fans, and you don't pick your moments. The game retired him rather than the other way round, and he's taken his first steps, notwithstanding how many games he had at Cardiff in charge? Half a dozen or so?
A handful at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Many.
No, good luck to him. Who knows how managers are going to go?
It's fair play to him if he can make it happen at Oxford. I think they're in a bit of trouble at the moment financially, aren't they? I think maybe under transfer embargo or something like that. They are. It's going to be a tough gig, that one, but good luck to him certainly.
Yeah, relegated last year, 22nd out of 24. League One sort of feels a bit like their level, I guess. Also got Mark Harris with him there as well.
Scored, I think, didn't he, Mark Harris, first game of the season?
Yeah. I'm trying to look else. Don't really recognise many of the names. Kieran Brown, he's ex-Cardiff, isn't he? So yeah. Good luck to Aaron Ramsey. Hope it works out, and could be the first rung on the managerial ladder. And who knows where it could take him. It could take him to Wales one day. He's the sort of name, if he does make a decent impression at Oxford, and he's the sort of thing that'll put him in the window from when we're looking to replace Bellamy, which might have been a little bit sooner than we might have expected, given the whole business with Burnley, which didn't seem to be handled particularly well by either Bellamy or the club. A couple of weeks previous, he was saying he's got the best job in the world. next thing, his head appears to have been turned, and I did hear that he wanted to take Chris Gunter with him, and Gunter was obviously managing in the European, the UEFA sort of elite championship that we were hosting as well, and that was a red line that the FAW weren't prepared to step over, and so it kind of all sort of fell down. There was talk then of Lewis Kumas going to Burnley as well as part of it. There seemed to be a lot more wrapped up in those negotiations than just the manager. Perhaps there always is, but I don't know. Bellamy seems to have kept a very low profile since then. You would have perhaps expected him to be doing some press around the World Cup and what he was making of it and things like that, but barely a whisper out of him. Probably for the best. Hopefully it's not going to sort of cast a bit of a shadow when they all get together.
Well, it'll be interesting with it, because he'll do his first press conference since that, in the sort of run up to our Nations League games at the start of the break that's coming up in a few weeks' time. I'm not as outraged as some fans are by the whole thing. I think maybe it's a lesson in just being a little bit more careful what you say. Bellamy's very good at saying the things fans want to hear. That was, that did sort of, we liked that actually when he first came in, didn't we? And we talk about the way he wants to play, he'd talk about his tactical vision, and he'd talk about his commitment and his patriotism or whatever else, and fans want to hear that. You've just got to be a little bit careful that doesn't start to ring hollow if some performances don't go your way, or if you get a little bit kind of caught up in a potential move like this. I'll still take him at face value at what he said, which was that he had offers that he could have maybe taken before that and wanted to stay with Wales. And I'll be a bit understanding about the fact that the Burnley job is a club where he's got some credit and some history because he was Company's assistant there. It is a biggish job. It's a club coming down from the Premier League, and I'm afraid that for a Wales manager, a job at a championship club, particularly a top-end championship club, represents a promotion, really, doesn't it? In terms of the money you're going to make and in terms of what it potentially can mean for your career. That is something we have historically had to face as a nation, and I think it remains to be seen now how he handles this slightly awkward next period. But it's like anything else. If we play really well in the Nations League, no one's going to care anymore. And if we don't, then questions are going to be asked. And if we don't, then he's not going to be getting offers from clubs as high a level as Burnley anyway, if performances for Wales start to drop off. So the situation we're in is as it ever was. For Bellamy's career as a future, hopefully a talented young manager, and for his future, he needs to get Wales playing well and qualifying for a tournament.
Yeah, well, the talk was that going to Burnley would basically triple his wages, which I guess is probably about right. I have no idea, but that's just what I heard. And for a guy who has had financial issues, he's talked about it. It's been out in the press that he went bankrupt a few years ago. So, those things have got to be taken into consideration. If someone comes along and sort of says, "Okay, here's 3 times more as much money for doing this sort of a similar job to what you're doing at the moment," and you get to be out on the pitch with players every single day, then I can understand why his head was turned. I wasn't like outraged, but I was a bit sort of disappointed, really, because I really feel like there's unfinished business there, and probably in his head he had it that it sort of planned out that we were going to qualify for the World Cup, and he was going to get us out of the group, and the stock would be really high, and then he'd probably get offered a decent Premier League job like Newcastle or something like that, and then everyone would sort of be fine for him to go off the back of us doing okay at a World Cup. And it just didn't work out, and I feel like he's got something to really prove now. And whilst I understand the temptation to go to Burnley, absolutely, I feel like he's probably not going to get the chance to be Wales manager again. And this was his shot at redemption. He should have achieved more as a player than he did, given his talent. Here's a guy who only won the League Cup with Liverpool and the League Cup with Celtic, and for a player who played for Liverpool and Newcastle and Manchester City, big clubs under big trophy-winning managers, to have come away from his playing career with that smaller haul of medals is a disappointing return. And with Wales as well, he was there obviously as a key part of that Euro 2004 team, which just missed out on the playoffs, and then he was kind of around at the end when Coleman started to turn things around, just ahead of our most successful campaign ever, when by which time he'd retired. So he missed out on playing in a major tournament with us, of course, and this was going to be his big shot to do that. And now the opportunity is there to lead Wales in basically a sort of home European Championships, which is easier to qualify for than the World Cup. So I feel like it's a mixed feelings, really, because I remember when Coleman left, it was just after my Flynn book came out, and I did first launch event was at London Welsh Centre with Ellis James, and we opened up for questions, and first question was, should the FAW have done more to keep Chris Coleman? And my answer was absolutely not, because my feeling is always like with a job like football management, that if somebody's heart isn't completely in it, then they walk away and go somewhere else, do something else. And with Coleman, it was like, well, you could tell he'd had his peak with the Euros, and we'd just failed to qualify for the World Cup. And yeah, it was time for him to go and do something else. And so I was remembering the whole mess of Mark Hughes kind of wanting to stay on for the wrong reasons, but really wanting to go and be a manager in the Premier League. But with Hughes and Coleman, they were in place for like 5-6 years. Bellamy's only been in the job 2 years, and he's not seen this through yet. So I kind of I don't want him to quit and just sort of be like he was as a player, just, quitting every 2 years and moving on to the next one. I just want him to see something through in his football career, and taking Wales to a tournament would be a case of seeing it through, I think.
Yeah, it would be, and it would be lovely to see. But I just think, sometimes we can be, I kind of, as what Leon describes is exactly how I sort of feel instinctively. But I think sometimes we've got to be a little bit careful of having this sort of, I don't know, maybe slightly naive, for want of a better word, fans' perspective about the way a manager, a footballer in that situation has got to think about their career. And it is really fleeting, that sort of, all right, it's not quite a moment in the sun for him. He hasn't done that well. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if the kind of offers he's getting are not, maybe not even championship clubs, but because he's got this sort of history with Burnley, that job came along, and that maybe that stood out amongst the other offers he's got as a bigger job, and B, something that, maybe he had a bit of kind of emotional investment in as well. I don't know. I think you're right. It is different to the sort of Hughes Coleman thing because he hasn't been there a long time. But, I think sometimes you have got to take those moments when they come, and you can't always choose when those moments come. And if it hasn't worked out, I think he's probably got enough of a track record with Wales, at least, notwithstanding what you may say about his club career, which is a little bit more transient, that, he is a passionate Welshman. He is kind of invested in the success of the Welsh team. He has been through his sort of playing career and his managerial career. I find it hard to believe he's not got the wherewithal to sort of refocus on the job he's in now and approach it as seriously and with the same commitment he would have done the last campaign. And if not, I'm sure that will become apparent. But ultimately, it won't be that. It'll be the results. Can he get the team playing and winning games? And if we don't qualify for the next one either, then you might look back and say, well, actually, he hasn't done a very good job, and is he the person we want as our manager anyway?
We've won 2 in the last 9, 3 in the last 11. That's Liechtenstein, Kazakhstan, and obviously the standout result probably of his reign so far is the North Macedonia game. But that's the exception, very much the exception to the rule in that run. If you extend it a little bit further back as well, again, it's just another couple of, it's just another win against Liechtenstein and another win against Kazakhstan.
But equally, if you take competitive games, we talk about he's only had a year or two in the job. The Nations League, his initial Nations League campaign, we won the group and got promoted. We were undefeated in that. I think we won 4 and drew 2 or something like that. We did all right in that for a new manager coming in. We got as far as the playoffs in. All right, we made hard work of some of those games. You're not wrong about Kazakhstan and Liechtenstein and some of those others. But remember, in the sort of post-Bale, Alan Ramsey era, we got to a playoff. Okay, we didn't quite make it. We were unlucky on penalties, and we did blow it a bit in that Bosnia game, and there are questions to be asked. But I think it's a bit early to say. I'm not suggesting this is what you're saying, but I think it's a bit early to say this is a manager on a downward spiral. I think, all right, there's a lot we'll know after 4 games, maybe the Nations League now, but it's a different competition again against higher level opposition. The problem is that with the concentration of qualifiers now, you actually only have limited sort of windows to really see what we're like as a proper competitive team in really, really important games. And you could argue maybe that won't even come until next year, depending on how seriously you take the Nations League.
Those 4 games are in 10 days as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's 2, 5, 6 weeks off and then another 2 where things can change. Players can, pick up injuries, come back. He's got to get that squad through those 4 fixtures. And if it's 3 defeats and a draw, or if it's another couple of games like the Belgium games where we just play silly football, then I can see the pressure beginning to build them a little bit, both from the fans and the press. And they're 2 away games and then 2 home games. We could be coming into the third fixture of those with potentially some poor results and or performances in the 2 away games. I think there could be some. There could be some grumbling in the stands.
I mean, Russ is very much looking at it from a sort of glass half empty perspective, whereas the glass half full view would be in 2 years, the only team that we've lost to in a competitive game is Belgium. And because the Bosnia game was a draw and it just went to penalties, and that's the glass half full perspective. I accept that.
And I think this autumn, maybe I feel like it's performances more than results. This is Nations League A. We're playing Denmark, Norway and Portugal. We won't be the favourites for any of those games, will we? So what are our expectations of fans? If we lose all 6 games, that's bad, but it's kind of not, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And if we make a decent fist of being competitive in those games, I think that's probably enough going into the qualifiers then in the new year. I guess it's just if the manner of defeat in any of those games is bad, or we literally don't lay a glove on some of these teams, then or we look really, part of Bellamy's problem is the way he's played. We have looked really open at times. If we don't see any kind of shift and adaptation in the way he's able to sort of shut really good teams down. We conceded 8 goals in 2 games against Belgium, 8 goals in 2 games against Belgium in the qualifiers. This is a bit of a test of that.
And if you're going to be in the top tier of the Nations League, the group that we've got, easy is not the word, but that's about as best a fighting chance of staying up in the top tier. There's no Germany's in there, and Italy's and England's, and there's probably points going to be taken off each other. It strikes me as that sort of group. Maybe a hangover or 2 post World Cup. Sometimes that happens for countries. So I think we should be looking to stay up, which is basically what finished 3rd. So there'll be a couple of defeats along the way.
That would be successful.
I think it would be. I think
staying up.
And I think that's a reason. So we need to be winning. We need to be winning at least a couple of those, and picking up a draw away. If we win the 2 home games and a draw away, then that probably is enough. I think he's capable of it. The squad is capable of it. It would be good if we could lay a glove on them. It would be good if we could maybe get a bit more of a scalp that isn't, I don't know, Iceland or whoever it is that we've North Macedonia. But we can cover those games in a bit more depth the closer they are. I appreciate it's getting late. Appreciate your time. If you were still alive today, it would be the 160th birthday of the wonderfully named Caesar Augustus Llewellyn Jenkins, a.k.a., and if you don't have a nickname as good as this, then frankly you need to try harder in life, the Bastard of Bilth. And then I discovered as well, he had a brother. His brother's name was Plato. The Jenkins household were really pushing the boat out when it came to names. An incredible moustache. He wore a cap, very dashing. It was a big chap by all accounts, and was sent off quite a lot of times. Back in the day when basically the game was legalised violence anyway. So to actually be told to get off the pitch, he must have had something about him. So I thought I'd leave that one to the end.
Could I just mention something quickly?
Go on. Any other business?
Yeah, last time there were 3 Welsh clubs in the second tier of English football. Wales played 7, won 5, drew 2, and only scored 11 and only conceded 1 goal in a friendly victory against the Republic of Ireland. So that's, if you're looking for a good omen for the season ahead. That was the 1980-81 season when Cardiff and Wrexham struggled and just stayed in the division, but Swansea under Toshak went up to the top flight for the first time in their history. But if you're looking for omens, that's a good one.
When literally we were in short trousers.
Yeah, I forgot. I was probably still in nappies actually at the start of that season, at least. Anyway, but we were headed for World Cup in Spain, and then it all just went horribly wrong at the end of the campaign, as it always did. But the start of that campaign was really good. So
that's not the omen bit, no.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully,
no, the early bit. Right, okay.
It's like the season where Wales played 7 and won 5, drew 2 against some good teams as well, and only conceded 1 goal. And so yeah, that's what I'm looking to as a good sign.
But Cardiff struggled that season, you said.
Yeah, they stayed up on goal difference because Swansea beat Preston on the last game of the season for them to go up and relegate Preston. But if they hadn't, that had been a draw, Preston would have gone up. Stayed up. Cardiff would have gone down, and Swansea would have stayed in the division. So by going up, Swansea actually saved Cardiff as well from a relegation.
The brotherhood of Welsh club fans.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Ruben Colwell obviously got an equaliser the other day, didn't he? So I know he's had some injuries, so it's a bit more of any other business. I know he's not had much of a pre-season, but he came off the bench and he put in. I thought the keeper could have actually done a little bit better with it, but we'll gloss over that. Good to see him off the mark, playing with a smile on his face. Did they retrieve him from the crowd after he celebrated that goal? I think he ended up in the first tier, didn't he? Far behind him.
Yeah, that was a great free kick. And I think, I read quite a lot of, it does go through the keeper a bit, but it looked bad in slow-mo. But if you see it, full pace, he absolutely leathers it. And, I think, to be fair to the keeper, he's just smashed that so hard. It's it'd be an incredible save to keep that out. He played well against Derby as well on the weekend, his first start of the season. He's had not quite false dawns before, he's been an important player for City for a few years, but he has flashes, doesn't he? And I think it remains to be seen if he can put together a season that makes him a serious player for Wales. But the start of the season has been bright, so I'm going to be optimistic for now.
Yeah, and that free kick, it's not. It was right on the edge of the area as well, and those can be harder than 30 yards out, because you've got so much less space to get it up and down and over the wall. So yeah, you did. You're right. You absolutely leathered it. But I'm just having a look. He's still, Wikipedia does the current squad, and it does recent call-ups, and players can kind of hang around for a bit, but then they drop out. He's still in the recent call-ups bit, which is something. Let's see if he's still only 24. I might still be using the word "still only" when he's 34, mind, but feels like he could be that sort of player as well. But
it feels like the Colwell corner is going to be obligatory for the next decade, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The sort of how's Ruben getting along of the podcast. So yeah, I'm glad we got it in.
Yeah.
No, fair play. It was. I could see him scoring. About 86 minutes, I turned to my mate and said, this is finishing 1-1. It's finishing, because we just didn't put it to bed. And he said, no, Cardiff haven't created anything for a long time. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter. We haven't killed it. They're gonna have something. There's gonna be a chance. And
it was a needless free kick as well.
Oh yeah, it was stupid. It really was. It was a bit of a brainless play from Dodd.
Keep him more off the mark for the season. It's always good when strikers open their accounts early.
Fair play, lashed it. Yeah, that was two good goals. Yeah. 2 good goals from the Welsh internationals there.
Cool.
The 2 tall Welsh internationals.
Yeah. If you have a look at Cameron Congreve's Wikipedia picture, him and Colwill, there's something going on there. I had to almost double check if they actually got the right picture here. They look far too alike, those two. Have Westerlo actually signed the right player? That's what I'm wondering now. But I will leave that one with you.
It's like a whole rumour about AC Milan signing Luther Blissett by mistake when they really wanted to take John Barnes from Watford.
Yeah, that's a good one. Listen, let's leave it there. Any mention of Luther Blissett, I think, is always a good point to which to end a podcast about Welsh football. And enjoy the rest of your summer holes, and we'll do this before too long and look at the Nations League. So cheers, fellas.
Diolch yn fawr. Thanks.
Ta-ra.